Happy New Year there, Mayor Wu. How are you?
Happy New Year. Good to see you, Jim and Shirley.
Do you have plans for the new year? You're the snake, right?
Yes, Year of the Snake. So we had our dragon baby right under the
I know.
deadline.
I was telling Jim I have a dragon baby too. My youngest is a dragon baby.
So
So
we'll be back on the Lunar New Year circuit in Chinatown and beyond very soon.
that's great. So anyways, so you were on the show, was it last Wednesday?
I don't know what day it was.
It's I
Couple of
know.
days after Mayor was born.
Yeah. Or maybe it was a couple 10 days. I can't even, I've lost track of time now. Anyways, it probably was a while ago, but it's so great to have you on. So how's Mira and how's your working leave going?
She's great. Yeah, we are going in for her 2-week doctor's appointment later today. So time has been flying by, and she's getting quite chunky around the thighs and all the ways that you want to see with the little ones. Her brothers are just so happy and trying their best to be helpful whenever they can. And it's been great because then that means I've had the support system to be able to keep plugging in and plugging away at the city's issues. We had, my daily check-ins with staff now happen over Zoom, and the doctor said to try to stay off my feet for about 2 weeks. So I'm right at that point as well. We had a virtual bill signing yesterday for our senior tax exemption home rule petition with Mass Senior Action, and different events that I've been able to be part of virtually here and there. And tomorrow I'll be in City Hall for our cabinet meeting. So we're going with the flow and making sure that we can do things in a way that works for the family, but also keeping the business of the city running.
You're going to be physically at City Hall tomorrow for the cabinet meeting? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I will
Oh,
have the baby too because I can't be away from her for too long with
fair
the
enough.
nursing at this point. But
You know,
we will all be there.
one of the issues I'm sure you're checking in with your people about is obviously this immigration thing. People probably remember when on our show, and I think on Channel Five, I'm not sure, you mentioned the Trust Act here in Boston. You got and basically saying that the city was not going to be cooperating with mass deportation efforts. Almost immediately, Trump's border czar Tom Homan responded to you specifically. Here's what he said.
So she helps us, she gets the hell out of the way, because they're going to do it. And look, there's a clear line here, and they can't cross a clear line. I would suggest she read Title 8, United States Code 1324 III, that says, you can't harbor or conceal an illegal alien in front of law enforcement officers. So I hope she don't cross that line.
Okay, that was specifically about you. And as you know, Mayor, well, a few days ago, Donald Trump made specific a dictate that any local officials who, quote, interfere, whatever that means, with his mass deportation efforts, local and state officials should be prosecuted. How are you preparing for that? And how are you preparing the people of Boston in schools and their communities for what is very possibly to come here?
I think we've seen in both of those examples you just noted and many more, there's been a lot of bluster so far and a lot of intentional trying to create drama and fear and sort of perception of fulfilling pretty draconian campaign promises when in reality our job at the city level especially, but I would say in government in general, is to understand the law, is to follow the law, and to know to go by facts rather than just sort of made up stuff. I think we've seen with the birthright citizenship move already that's been struck down, at least at the first step in the courts, pretty harshly as a clear violation of the Constitution. And even the letter that went out to dozens of municipalities basically threatening to jail or bring other prosecutorial consequences for not fulfilling their version of what cooperation looks like. That threatens mayors, it threatens police officers, it threatens librarians, the whole umbrella of quote unquote local officials who are involved in protecting our residents and making sure that we are running cities that are safe, where people feel like they can take their kids to school, engage in city services, call 911 when they need help, report crimes when they have information to report. That's been working in Boston. It's been working so well that we're recognized nationally as the safest major city in the country. And we will continue to follow the law. Now, the federal government has their purview. We don't enforce federal immigration law. Our police department takes care of criminal activity and they focus on local issues. And whenever someone breaks the law, we hold them accountable here, regardless of their immigration status, which we do not ask about and we do not interact with. The federal government has their purview, and this new administration has said they're changing the priorities. Whereas before, under President Biden, there was targeting of those with serious criminal allegations or backgrounds or prior history of deportation. Some of what we're seeing, at least in the early bits around the country, is that that largely has been what is still been demonstrated in the enforcement, but with Fox News embedded going along, with Dr. Phil, with this element of wanting to sensationalize and stoke greater fear about it. So we know that the federal government will continue to do what they do on the federal side. We will continue to do what we do on the city side, which is keeping everyone safe here. And we don't have the authority to, let's say, stop or overrule what they're doing in their domain, but neither do they in our domain either. And so we are going to continue to follow all the laws. We've issued guidance to school leaders and to our school communities that make it very clear there are no unauthorized adults that are allowed in school buildings, period, no matter what the purpose is. That is in general. And so those spaces will continue to be spaces where we don't ask about immigration status, and everyone is guaranteed to have access to a quality education. And we are going to be there to provide services for our residents, no matter what part of the city and no matter what background.
Mayor Wu, has ICE tried to go into schools or churches yet to try to deport immigrants?
We are not aware, certainly in Boston or across the very wide jurisdiction that the ICE Boston agency has, but they do not communicate with Boston police. They have not been informing the city or the police department about their actions ahead of time or afterwards. And so we don't have a lot of information on that front. I hope that this administration will prioritize what the Biden administration had prioritized, which is keeping their enforcement to those with a demonstrated history and convictions of violent crime, those who are public safety risks and threats to our community, rather than trying to stoke fear and expanding that. Some of the rhetoric around changing where enforcement will happen has immediate impact in communities feeling like maybe their kids shouldn't go to school, or maybe they shouldn't be part of going to the library or taking part in activities and opportunities. And it doesn't help anyone from a public safety impact when law-abiding residents and members of our community are forced into the shadows because of fear.
We're going to get to your calls in 1 second at 877-301-8970. One last immigration question, Mayor Wu. Exactly 8 years ago yesterday, Mayor Walsh offered up City Hall as a shelter of last resort for people who felt threatened by Trump's immigration policies. Would you do the same?
So, as far as I know, that was never acted on. I think it was and continues to be an important priority for the city of Boston to make clear to our residents that we are here to serve our residents, regardless of immigration status. I think the context is different now when there's such clear targeting of the specific locations where advertising or highlighting what is happening sometimes actually makes it so that residents are even more afraid of participating or being part of that. So we are very clear that we are going to continue to do what we're doing, which is following the law, making our city safe, and ensuring that everyone feels like they are safe because they can take part in city services and know that there will be accountability for crimes that take place across the board, just as there are clear opportunities and a focus on access to services across the board.
But no City Hall is shelter.
You know, I'm not one for performative actions that could theoretically put our residents at even greater risk. We are going to do everything that we can to make sure we are implementing and providing the supports that are needed for our residents. But that has not been something that has come up as a helpful step
Thank you.
in the current context.
We're talking to Mayor Wu. Karen from Boston, you're first with Mayor Michelle Wu. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, Mayor Woods. I really like you as my mayor, but our recent tax bill was we were shocked by, because it not only did the tax rate go up, but our condo was reassessed, and we're paying $250 more a month in taxes. And I was wondering if you could address that.
Thank you, Karen.
Yes. Thank you for highlighting this. Thank you for sharing and being a clear point of proof that the tax bills that have gone out have caused harm, have created an undue burden on residents. This is why for the last year prior, we were fighting and moving through all the steps up at the city council and at the state house to provide relief. And the common sense compromise provision that we had struck an agreement with both the Senate and business groups would have prevented this exact scenario. Every several years, there's a major recertification process in terms of valuations, property valuations around the city, where the state has to certify. And so lots of changes happen in adjusting, this and that parts of what the larger economic trends reflect. But the unique state provisions around tax law mean that when there's a dip in commercial values, not at all caused by residents, but because of larger economic trends, and residential values continue to hold strong, it immediately shifts too much of a burden onto residents in a single shock. And so we had proposed to cushion that and to be able to have mechanisms to offer relief. We are still at it and have refiled an expanded tax relief provision. So please get involved and advocate, reach out. There's actually a city council hearing today on this, and then knock on wood, if the city council moves this forward back up to the state house, then we will have an opportunity to advocate once again to the House and the Senate. Last time, every entity passed this multiple times, except for the state Senate, where it was blocked by one senator, given the quirks of being in informal session in that time of year. So we're now back in formal session. We've added provisions around senior tax relief, maintaining the small business protections as well, and offering an option for rebates, which need additional extra legal change in order for the city to be allowed to do that with the right authorities. And so we put everything on the table. There's still time, and we hope to deliver this relief now that everyone sees just how harmful this shock has been to residents.
I mean, Mayor Wu, I mean, you refiled this legislation, I think, hours before you delivered Mira. So have you heard from, the legislature on the prospects that your refiled bill might make it through the House and the Senate again?
We're still working through the process. I mean, I think in general, different entities want to see others take it up first. And so we're working through the city council piece once again, and hope for swift action there, because in order to implement the compromise that we had struck for this current tax year, it has to be done before bills go out in April. The rebate mechanism is a way to provide some relief even if the tax rates don't get changed, but it is important to have multi-year predictability. And that was a really key part of the compromise that we struck, was that this would be about a 3-year plan rather than just having to sit in this uncertainty again, same time next year, again, same time the year after that. This is a clear point of transition in the larger economy, and we have addressed every bit that we could possibly address, have amended the legislation to reflect concerns that senators had raised and other business folks had raised last year. And so we are going to push hard to make sure that this relief is recognized now that there's no question what the impact is on residents.
Very quick question before we take a quick break, Mayor Wu. We've discussed with you 100 times the legislature's rejection of what Boston's mayor and city council want on things like transfer fees on very expensive real estate when it's sold, rent stabilization, obviously this property tax thing. You filed another measure. Do you take any responsibility for those failures, or do you think it's all in the legislature?
No, anytime something doesn't happen ultimately, I feel a deep sense of accountability for it. Now, sometimes the system can feel stacked so that it is so hard to thread the needle exactly. And when you get to a place where for a year you've been doing everything that they said to do to follow the process, that it was just one more sub, then it was done, then it was done, and then one single person could block it from even getting a vote, it's hard to still have faith in this as a functional system, a functional way of making decisions in government. And so, we're going to keep making the argument, but it's very clear that the city is trying to do everything we can within this very archaic and dysfunctional way of letting individual municipalities exercise what they need. It's arbitrary. It doesn't reflect the larger will of the people, and we're going to keep running at it until there's some way to address what has happened.
By the way, the senator in question is Boston State Senator, South Boston, Nick Collins. Our number is 877-301-8970.
So we're going to take a quick break,
We are.
right? Yeah, so stick around. More of our conversation with Mayor Michelle Wu and Ask the Mayor right after this short break. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Oh, I think we've got a lot of calls lined up. We're going to go to John in Westford, who's been holding on the line for quite a long time.
Hi, John.
Hi. A quick question. On the Mass General is building a parking lot underground. It's 6 stories down, and 20% of it's going to be dedicated to EVs. Is there a public safety concern? Because I know when they catch fire above ground, they're almost impossible to put out. Are there any steps? I mean, it seems like it could be a death trap in the making.
Thank you, John.
Well, I will say that every bit of our approvals when it comes to construction plans or building design has to be vetted through our public safety agencies too. And our fire department has been very involved in kind of the evolving nature of what risks and threats there are. As you mentioned, battery storage poses one challenge. We've also been thinking a lot about how lab space and life sciences and the types of chemicals or materials that might be used there need updated response. And so they're they have been and remain very much involved in the approvals of projects like this. I don't know the exact number, and if it is 20% or what that figure is, I can go back and double check. But rest assured that this has been through vetting that includes sign off from our fire department as well as other public safety officials.
We're talking to Mayor Michelle Wu. Mayor Wu, Josh Kraft, the son of Robert Kraft, filed paperwork, I guess on Friday. It came out this morning that he is opposing you in the mayoral race in 2025. Have you spoken to him since all this happened?
I haven't.
What do you think of his candidacy?
Well, I think we will, I'll see how things unfold. What I'll say is this, I am now honored, blessed to be in my 12th year serving the city of Boston in a public capacity, 8 years on the council, and now in my 4th year in this role as mayor. And so knowing the city, knowing how much residents care about every little issue, whether it's a parking garage or a zoning plan or a tax bill, Boston residents expect you to know what's happening, to have clear positions, to be able to get right in there and very clearly explain how you're going to get things done and how you're going to make life better. Campaigns play an incredibly important role in that. And I really look forward to the chance to get to go through that unique opportunity with residents where once every 4 years or on the council once every 2 years, you really get into a specific, focused, visioning and essentially about what comes next for the city and all of our communities. And at some point, when you're the candidate, you're going to have to speak for yourself and not just have the consultants do it for you, and be clear about what you're putting forward. I'm really eager to get to that point and look forward to involving every resident of Boston in that conversation.
So have you met Josh Kraft
A little
before?
closer to the mic.
Oh,
Shirley.
have you met Josh Kraft before, and do you know him at all?
I have met him over the years. I have not seen him at a ton of events, and have had a phone call or two over several years, I would say, but don't know him very well.
You going to share anything else you're really thinking, Mayor Wu, or are we going to leave it at that?
We'll see what happens, and I'm sure I'll have more to say later on.
I'm sure you will. And you haven't, by the way, if you have not formally done your, I know you're running, but you haven't done your formal declaration or announcement yet, right?
No, I mean, I'm still, there's just so much, as you hear with every single call. I was elected to get things done for the city. There's a ton of work, especially now under the cloud of what will happen with the new administration at the federal level, and so many issues that we're working on. I'm focused on doing the job that I was elected to do. At some point in the future, we will make a clear announcement and shift that campaigning is also part of that job. But for now, I'm really focused on continuing to try to do the work of the city.
Great. We only have time for one more quick one. Michelle and Alston, you're next with the mayor of the city of Boston. Michelle Wu, welcome.
Oh,
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, welcome. Hi. You're on with the Mayor Wu.
I think you called her
Okay.
Michelle Wu. I think that's why she was
Oh,
confused.
sorry.
The caller's Michelle, and you're talking to Michelle Wu, the mayor. Go ahead.
Hi, Michelle, not the mayor. Welcome.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on, Mayor. It's good to see you virtually. And I just wanted to ask about the climate crisis that we're seeing very live unfolding in places like California and across the country. And with the new federal administration being very hostile to climate action, saying that we're in an energy emergency and needing more fossil fuel development, how you're thinking about Boston continuing to be a leader in this space of showing climate action leadership, and how we pave that course towards a renewable, regenerative society.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you for calling in and raising this, because this has been something that the climate sort of set of issues has been something that in some ways has gotten far too little attention, I believe, in terms of major shifts in policy. We saw hundreds of millions of dollars coming into Massachusetts, tens of millions of dollars coming to Boston in terms of resilience, key dollars that will help us build up our waterfront to protect from flooding, to transition to electric school buses, to shore up the community engagement and protections. And now that that federal spigot is effectively off, and in fact, even the opposite of that, potentially working to take away some of these policies, we're really going to have to depend on local partnerships, cities and states together, the private sector, the philanthropic sector, and the public sector. And we're very lucky that in Boston, there's a strong history of building up those kinds of connections. And we continue to lean even more into partnerships like the Green Ribbon Commission and others at the grassroots level to move things forward for the city. One note, since you brought up California and natural disasters, I do just want to emphasize that this work isn't only about policy, right? We are going to move forward with the zero net carbon zoning. We're going to continue to lead the way on policy making, but city services as a basic support and safety net for public well-being, health, and life safety is really, really important. It's clean water, access to clean water and clean air, but also in a wildfire, having the infrastructure that is there, having the public safety infrastructure ready to respond, having the water tanks ready, and all that. The equivalent for us, although wildfires have been now more and more prevalent in Massachusetts, but in Boston, the equivalent for us is flooding and heat. And so how we're thinking about infrastructure and how we're thinking about fully funding city services, emergency response, being able to get to residents and have plans ahead of time. Our Office of Emergency Management has been encompassing and shifting to really think about how natural disasters are going to be, unfortunately, a main focus area. So it's one more example of why across the board cuts to city services are in fact irresponsible in a time when unpredictability and the need at any given moment to respond relies on having that solid infrastructure and being able to jump in and be as prepared as possible.
Mayor Wu, it's really good to see you. Thanks for making time today. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks so much. Be well. Hi to the baby.
Thank you both.
Great.
Thanks.
See you.
Thanks.